Hey, everybody, welcome to the Dream Big podcast. And this kind of a special edition because I have a special friend. His name is Henry Cloud. And he is just such an awfully nice guy. And you're going to get to meet Henry here in a moment if you haven't already. He's a prolific writer. But if you wanted to know who's my go-to guy, like literally in a pinch, who do I go? I call Henry. And I say, buddy, my life is a dumpster fire. Like what? Give me some just words. And Henry's written a new book called Trust. So, Henry, welcome to the podcast.
Bob, it is so good to be with you and with all your peeps. But I got to tell you, I feel a little safer than the last time or when I was with you. So I got to tell everybody, I'm with Bob. We get in his seaplane, you know, the plane that lands on the water. And Bob's the pilot. So I'm sitting in the right seat. And we get up and we're only like, not that high. We're only a few 100 feet over and up. And Bob goes, okay, you take it. And I'm going, what? Now, fortunately, he didn't even ask me. I had flown right seat. I'm not a pilot, but I'd flown right seat enough to know to grab it and keep us in the air. But what a lunatic. He just handed it to me.
Oh, such is life. That'll preach. This whole idea of the whole idea is keep the wings level and gain altitude. And if you did those two things in your life, in your relationships, in your everything, and you did it like a boss, Henry. Like you're actually really good at this.
No, but you didn't know
that. Such is life. Well, what a great intro to a book about trusting people. Tell us about this newest book. Why this one? Why this topic? I know a lot of people may have met you in any of your dozen books, but boundaries was a really big one for a lot of people. It's like you became a household word in that. But then there were so many more, like, goodbyes to people and all that. Why this book and why right now?
Well, I love your phrase, keep the wings level and the altitude gaining. What happens when you trust the wrong person? The wings certainly aren't level anymore. Some context of life is all of a sudden disrupted and you're no longer gaining altitude. You're going down. And it's interesting, Bob, we are, an airplane's wired to gain altitude, right? And to fly level. And we're wired from birth to trust. God has wired us with oxytocin and other chemicals, and our whole system determines when it's safe. And that's when we open up and make ourselves vulnerable, either with our wallets or our hearts or our lives. And we're designed to do that. But because we are propelled to do that, it's also possible to fly into a mountain. And that's why, just like a pilot has an instrument panel, when the fog comes, you can kind of see where you're going. What I did in the book was I put together all the different factors that drive trust and make somebody trustworthy or untrustworthy, and took that algorithm and came up with 5 things that it all hinges on. And we got to make sure we check all the boxes because one of them can be good and we move forward, but if the others aren't there, likely to hit a mountain.
Yeah, sometimes what we're quick to do is vilify that there's been a breach of trust, a misunderstanding or something, and then you want to impute some evil motives to that, right, when it really might be just a different perspective, or they're coming in with as much baggage and confusion as you are entering into that. So how do you help people navigate that to I call it LCE, come up with the least creepiest explanation for whatever just happened? Because it's easy to come up with the most to have this catastrophize. But the LCE, like a woman walked in to a place I was preaching at, and so there's only one seat available in this whole thing in the front row. And she walked in with a 7-foot boa around her neck. Not feathers, like boa constrictor. And I'm not a big snake guy. And I was just freaked out and it said, what's the least creepiest explanation? And the best one I could come up with it, maybe she doesn't know. Maybe she ducked under a tree in the parking lot and wrapped around. I'm like, I'm not telling her. So how do you navigate that with people when you're?
I thought of another LCE. Actually, the snake is a preacher, and she brought somebody in to go. The snake brought her in to come to church for the first time.
Exactly. Have an apple.
You just have an apple. That's exactly what happens a lot of times. We do impugn motives and come up with the most creepy explanation. We don't realize sometimes that what's going on with somebody does come from somewhere, and it's not nefarious in any way towards you. They're acting that way because something they bring to the party, something they're bringing to that context. And that's why the first element that I wrote about was understanding. Trust is built on when somebody stops trying to persuade you, but you feel like they understand you, and vice versa. And we really can't move forward. There's a proverb that says, he who gives an answer before he listens, before he understands, is a fool. And it starts with trust is going to be built when we feel like somebody gets us. When they understand what I need, what hurts me, what did hurt me, what I'm afraid of, what makes me happy. When we feel that they really see me and they understand what I need, that's when it begins to build. And so sometimes, if somebody's got a little suspicion or whatever, all it takes is a conversation, and you'll start to sense through mirror neurons and other ways, wait a minute, this person's really listening. They're really getting what I'm saying. Now, that doesn't mean hit the button to trust yet, but it does mean that's one box we can check off. At least they're listening to me. Bob, I was talking about this at a leadership event one time, and a guy walks up to me and says, I'm the lead hostage negotiator for the FBI. And everything you just described is our training program. We don't walk into a bank with a guy with a bomb strapped to him and start persuading them, to trust us. First thing we got to do is say, so tell me how we got here today. What's going on?
Yeah.
And you start to draw that out. And that's what we have to do with each other. Before we reject or before we accept, we need to ask, so how we get here today? What's going on? What is this about?
Yeah, sometimes just finding out what something is connected to say, if I'm feeling anxiety, to say, I wonder what that's connected to. And maybe it's connected to feeling a deep need or fear of rejection or need for validation. But to just say, if you can go that next level, it's Philippians 2:20. It's Paul talking about Timothy. He said, I don't have anybody like Timothy. He's a guy who takes a genuine interest in my welfare. And I just go like, somebody takes a genuine interest.
That is the second one. Somebody can understand you, but they're understanding you to manipulate, right? That's what predators do. That second one is the second element. What's their motive? Why are they doing this? And you've heard people say that, somebody offers something, I wonder what he wants out of this. That's, you've had some experience where they're coming to me, but it's really just about them. And so we've got to sense, like you said, Bob, that they don't only care about their own interests and what's going to happen in this, in this deal or this, whatever they're asking us to do. It's not just about what they need. They're also watching for and attuned to and wanting it to work for me. And when we feel like somebody, Bob, I'll just tell your audience, my deals with Bob, over the years, if he calls and asks for this or that, I don't even think about it, because 50 more times has he shown, how can he help me? What can he do for me? He wants to be there for me. And you sense, that's how marriage goes south. It's all about one person, all about their agenda. Or a team, the team's trying to drive some, but there's just one person. They got their own agenda. They're trying to push it. You always feel kind of moved in their direction. That's not good.
Yeah, think about that idea when love has an agenda. It isn't love anymore, it's a program. And so, even for those many people that listen, faith is important to them. It's important to me. I know it is for you. And other people that listen in, not so much. They're just, they love people. And boy, raise my hand high on that one too. Um, but
I love the verse. I think it's in 1 Corinthians 13. It says, love does not seek its own.
hmm,
That's the motive thing. You know, why is somebody doing this? It may be they just want the best for me. And that's a good thing.
yeah, I like I've officiated a couple of weddings. I bet you have too. And after all the 1 Corinthians 13, love is this and love is that, then it gets right down to the practical part. It's like it's looking through a mirror dimly. I go like, that's what I want to like say, like that oftentimes we're just trying the best we can with limited resources. And there's a humility about that to say, I'm not gonna like in a tense a conversation or relationship that got a little sideways to say, hey, listen, the only words I could access right now wouldn't be the best words because the stupid shelf is right there and it's got all kinds of things to say on it. But what I want to do is reach up a little higher. So let's check back in tomorrow and I'll be able to access more words. Is that a something that you counsel people to do, to just pause a little bit, collect your thoughts, find some better
Yeah.
words?
No, it's so, it's hard to say something stupid if we're not saying anything.
Quote of the day. I like that. Don't let
And,
Maria know. She's gonna put that on my sweatshirt.
well, part of the book is the path to rebuilding trust. If there's been a betrayal in a marriage or in business or in some friendship or family. In fact, I just had a woman call me a few days ago. Her father threw her out into the yard when she was 17.
Hmm.
And she hadn't talked to him since. She had to go make her way at 17.
Yeah, rugged.
She's 40 and he just reached out to her. And he said, I want you back in my life. I'm sorry for what I did or something like that. And she went into a 2-day tailspin. And she said, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I mean, do I respond? Do I not respond? I don't want to trust him again. I just want to yell at him. But then there's a part of me, I'd like to have a dad. And I said, Susan, right now, like a certified letter, just send back. I got your text. I'm thinking about it. I'll respond when I'm ready. And you just, like a boxer that just got hit, you go in your corner with your safe people and you gotta regather yourself. You don't say anything right now. You're not ready. It's either going to come out of hurt or fear. You're going to move away and never have anything that when it's possible, or you're going to move towards when you shouldn't. We're just going to process, get your brain back working first. And you're exactly right. Timeout is one of the best things, Bob. I'm a big proponent of, if I were God, I'd hand everybody a little coupon book and say, this is how many words you get today.
Yeah. Choose wisely. Yeah.
Choose wisely. Some people say way more words than they should be allotted for that day.
Yes. I know one day the thing I started doing, gosh, a decade ago, is I have these 3 red tickets, kind of like carnival tickets, and I give myself 3 screw ups every year, like big screw ups. I'm not aiming for that, but that idea of a little
every year.
Yeah. So I should do 3 a minute.
I need a bigger book than that.
I need more tickets. But to just give yourself a little bit of grace, to just remember you're not a piñata and don't hit yourself because it's not candy that comes out of you when you do. It's all kinds of other crazy. And what we can do when we're miss one another and the other person is a good character, like they're a really great person, you could reflect on the years that you've known them, you could say, I'd really like to meet. This friendship is worth it. Let's do it. But yet respect them and their process and their intellect enough to know it might not be the right thing for them. So that idea of saying, I'm super available to this, but at the same time, to not force that and then respect that they're really high functioning and they know what they're dealing with and they know much more about the complexity of their life and you're wrong or whatever your reaction that's got them anxious. Is that a good strategy to just say like, hey, listen, I'm super up for meeting. Let's do it. But don't force people to do that. That feels like manipulation.
Yeah, I think you've kind of talked about a few elements there. One is that with that particular scenario, you're calling to mind a track record. And, any of us can have a problem, a miscue, a mistake or whatever, and trust kind of gets dinged. But if there's a track record, this is not really who this person is, something must be going on here. I'm going to hit pause because we're looking at this is not in character of how I know them. On the other hand, if the betrayal is one where it's like, well, here we go again, that's a different scenario. And so what you're talking about there about hitting pause, I'm not going to jump back into it, but I'm not going to fight or flight either. I'm going to hit pause. And then in the book, I talk about an actual path and some steps. The first thing is, like we said, I got to bleed off my emotion so I can do something sane. But then I got to ponder, what is this relationship about? Is it worth salvaging? Is it too dangerous to salvage? And do I want to go down that path or not? And then that's when we find out who we're dealing with. Because ultimately you are going to talk and you're going to either hear excusing or minimizing or whatever, or you're going to hear real ownership of what they did and remorse. And you start to work back through the algorithm where I feel like they're really getting it of what they did to me. And I feel like they really see it. And I feel like, and that's when you can reconcile the relationship to where we're okay now. That doesn't mean you jump back in and trust, because forgiveness takes one person. We can do that. Now, when they come to the table, reconciliation takes two, where they're really seeing and owning what they did. And we're getting it that they got it. But then that's all free. Forgiveness is free, but trust is earned. So we're going to have to, depending on, was it a felony or a misdemeanor, we got to look at going forward, maybe taking baby steps and finding out how real this change is.
I really like what you said about track record, where really high integrity people in your life, they're just don't forget that they've got, a long history of just being really trustworthy in your life. There'll be some new entries to your life that you go like you have a limited universe of experience. So what are some of the other...
What's so horrible about some aspects of the cancel culture? Some people can have long track records of a lot of people have gotten so much, there's so much goodness there. And then maybe they say one thing out of boom, they're gone. No, off the planet.
Yeah, bingo.
Not going to talk to them again. When, first of all, they didn't know the context. And secondly, maybe that was 10 years ago that quote came. I mean, it's just, but there are some people that, remember, trust is contextual as well. Sometimes we can trust some people in some ways and not others. I mean, if you saw Silence of the Lambs, remember that movie?
Yeah.
The FBI is trusting Hannibal Lecter to coach them to catch the serial killer. Why? Because he's pretty good in that context. But they got him in a cage.
Yes, totally.
They're going to protect themselves in some ways as well. So it's not either or. A lot of times it's not a toggle switch. But it breaks my heart to see some people quoted out of context or something, and then they get canceled by a lot of people.
Yeah, what can happen, and you're a public figure, and a number of friends that I'm aware of that are, it becomes scary. It becomes like a not safe place to be, because you get one person kind of in your knickers about something, and then just all this attention being focused there. So I think what we need to do, that Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for from it your entire life is going to flow. So don't guard your heart, but don't put it behind a wall, like have a drawbridge. And you can let the drawbridge down for the right people. To your point, just find some safe people, but don't be like vilifying everybody who has a word of correction for you. Some people who, and that's hard for me to hear a word of correction, but to receive that, say, wow, this is a really high integrity person, and they've said something that I've got a blind spot on. I really want to take that to heart, but don't have it like cut you off at the knees. Say like, find what's good in that, make changes that you should make, and then continue on in your life. Think about with cancel culture with Peter, and he's denying Christ and the roosters going off and all that. And people in our faith communities would be like, oh, well, that guy sent one tweet and he's off the force. And Jesus said, you're the rock I build my entire church on. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I love about one of the places where that's mentioned in the New Testament, when he's telling Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times. And Peter's going, no way, all this kind of stuff. But then he says, before Peter screws up, he says, but after you have returned, you will become the source of strength for many. Mm-hmm. And that's what I love what you said about you give yourself, 3 screw up passes a year. You're looking ahead of time. I know I'm not going to be perfect. And that's where, with people that we trust, we actually want them to give us, like you're saying, that word of correction, because they're on our side. And when you're getting haters come at you, that's not who we listen to. But the people that we know, their motives are for me. They're telling me this for my good. Then, Bob, you're a pilot. What if you got offended every time the altimeter told you, you're going into a dive? No, you want that correction.
Yeah.
But the thing about it, who can we trust? And that's why I think it's important to have a roadmap of knowing what to look for before you open your wallet or your heart, and knowing whether or not I'm going to make myself vulnerable to this person, because trust is about vulnerability.
Yeah. The just staying with this idea of that time we were in the plane, when I gave you the controls, I don't know if you remember, but I said, Henry, you've got the flight controls. And then you said back to me, I have the flight controls. And then I said to you, it's your plane. So to just make clear that we know who's flying the plane, that it used to be my plane, now it's your plane, you have the controls. And so speak to us about that, to have clarity in the communications, like how we can have greater clarity so that you and I wouldn't want to be confused. You think I'm flying it, I think you're flying it, and then we hit the hill.
And worse when I think I'm flying it and you take control.
Oh, bingo. Well said.
Now we got a real problem. And think of if you've ever had a boss that micromanaged you. They're supposed to be giving you this project and letting you run with it and have hands off the controls. But because of a lack of trust, either in their head or maybe because of experiences or whatever, two people can't fly the same plane at the same time. And that's why trust makes life scalable. I was talking to a guy on an airplane. I'm researching trust. And he goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm writing a book on trust. I'm researching trust. He goes, well, I don't trust anybody. I said, what do you mean? He said, I learned a long time ago, you can't trust people. He said, I only trust myself. I said, well, I'm a psychologist and you're crazy. It's like, what do you mean? I said, dude, look out the window. You're at 43,000 feet. Did you get yourself up here? No, you didn't. You trusted a couple of people up in the cockpit. Did you? How do you know there's gas in this plane? They might have put chocolate milk in here. No, you trusted. Now, think about that. And when I asked him about his life and heard his story, I could see how he had been dinged in some key areas. But because he was untrusting, his life relationally and in other ways was pretty small and riddled with a lot of broken relationship stuff. The only way we get to the next level in life, to get to 40,000 feet, is going to require trust. You can't scale anything by yourself. It's going to require, it's your plane. My heart's in your hands. I'm investing with you, go do it. I got other stuff to do. We trust somebody. We can be careless. We don't have to watch our back. But if we hand the controls to the wrong person, then we're in trouble. And if we try to control them while we're supposed to be trusting them, that's a big conflict. So it's essential what you're talking about.
So good. Well, Henry, I'm just so glad that you've written this book called Trust. For those of you listening, Henry doesn't need you to buy his book. You need you to buy his book. And think about buying 2 of them. And the only reason is that if you had somebody that you were reading that book with, if you're in an office, then it's just going to give you a common language. Just say, hey, I'm on chapter 3.
Bob, the book has it's like I said, it's like a little dashboard of the 5 elements that build and break trust. And we used to do this with our kids. Sunday night family meeting, we would go around the table and I'd say, okay, guys, let's review the week. What was it like to be on the other side of me this week? Mm-hmm. That's your dad. Well, I liked it when you did this, but this really doesn't help when you do that. And so we're trying to understand each other. Then we go to the next one. When did you feel like I was really for you? And when did I screw it up? And what do you need from me that's differently? And that's different. And this is designed, for marriages, for families, but for work teams. You go around an executive team and start to work through, how are we doing as a brand? Do our customers experience these things in us? Do our vendors experience it? And are we seeing this in the people we're hiring to be our vendors? You got to have the conversations. That's when it gets really robust.
Yeah. Well, what I'm doing with my team is we're getting your book and we'll all be reading it together. And then we'll just be saying, so when you came to this topic, what did that make you think? And then really neat team members, but you're saying it's okay to talk to me about this. This is an opening because I've teed this up, and just see what happens. Well, the book is Trust. You can get it all the places you need to get books. But Henry, thank you. Thanks for a decade of friendship and just the countless people that you're a trusted voice to. I know for me, for Sweet Maria, for our kids, for my circle of friends, you've been really pivotal. And you've been there for me at really important times.
Likewise, I'm blessed to not only know you, but know you well. And I remember I asked you for something one time and you responded, "Are you kidding? I'd give you a lung." And, and if I need one, I'm going to call you.
Good. Come on.
But I feel the same way. And I know I say this for a lot of people, Bob, I travel around and speak of this. Oh, we had Bob Goff come in. And then, it's a 5-minute love fest. Everybody's talking how much they loved it. So thank you for all you do for us.
Well, you guys, you've been listening to the Dream Big podcast. The book is Trust. And think about doing something and do this as well as you take agreeing with Jesus off the table. Because he isn't interested in your agreement. He's interested in you doing something about it. And so if this is one of the many avenues to do it, to talk, have some conversations around trust, this might be a great tool for you. All right, you guys, we'll talk in next week.
Access more